Hi, everyone. We are here today to do a demo and sprint review for Starlight Sprint 13, which ran from April 13th through April 26th, 2022. This sprint is what the Surfliner team is calling an off-cycle sprint, and we're experimenting with these dedicated off-cycle work times to focus on doing maintenance, upgrades, and new features for our in-production products, such as Starlight, which has been in production for almost 2 years at both campuses. So the goals of Sprint 13 were really a combination of all these things, a lot of things that had been hanging out in the backlog for a while. One of the major goals of the sprint was to implement a new feature that was requested by stakeholders to allow to link to related sites from the right-hand side of the homepage. Another was to clear the UCSB blockers that have been preventing us from upgrading to Spotlight version 3.0. And for a variety of reasons, primarily related to the original Starlight development and deployments, as well as the evolution of our infrastructures over time. UCSB and UCSD were actually running different instances of Starlight at the beginning of the sprint and have been for at least a year. And then we also wanted to move forward with finally having a dedicated Surfliner instance of Starlight where we could host the documentation site as well as host future documentation sites for other Surfliner products. And then we also needed to address some of the visual bugs that had been discovered by UCSD in version 3.0 and fix some bugs related to Universal Viewer and some other visual bugs, and then also just do general maintenance on the site. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt to provide a demo of some of what was accomplished in Sprint 13, and then we'll come back and wrap it up.
All right, let me share my screen. So the first thing that Chrissy mentioned was the one of the changes that we did was adding the ability that had been requested by both campuses to add content to the sidebar of the main landing page for exhibits. And so we don't have actually either campus leveraging this yet, so we can't show either UCSD or UC Santa Barbara's final version of using this content, but what we can show is a screenshot to show where it will go. So this test area you can see over here to the right, and it works. That's where the links and content that each campus would like to add to its deployment will go. And so we hope that we have tickets that are open for gathering that content, and we expect that within the next few weeks, hopefully that will be populated and deployed to each of our campuses. And then I can show a couple of other things. Chrissy mentioned the analytics feature. And so because both campuses are running Google Analytics and leveraging it externally by just directly going to the Google Analytics website, we chose to suppress for now the internal analytics gathering and display feature for Starlight, because that had been confusing some folks because it wasn't set up properly. And so if we would go to, see, actually, if I go back to one of the exhibits and then go to the exhibit dashboard, previously here, there would be a link, there would have been a link to the analytics. And so for now, that's suppressed for our deployments, and that's not visible anymore. Another thing that I can show is that we had, as part of the Spotlight 3 upgrade, there was a bug that was reported where any of the exhibits that were using the carousel widget feature. So on any of the pages that we're using a carousel, that those pages actually broke. And so we've fixed that in this sprint. One that I could show here is from our visual front collection. And so the carousel is this widget you can see here in the middle. And so that's back and rendering now. We've incorporated the changes from upstream to get this to display again. And so that's working on our deployment. And once Santa Barbara upgrades to version 3 of Spotlight, then all of their carousels will continue to work as expected also. Another bug that was reported was that our use of universal viewer caused an issue with content that was embedded into other sites. Because if we would do a deploy, we sort of had a custom tag that would have been generated and added to that URL. And that tag can change in future deployments. And so we've updated the code to no longer have that unique tag. And so any future embedded content, let me see if I can find an item somewhere. So now if you go to the embed, it's really small, but there's no longer that custom ID that's appended to the URL. And so these iframes that can be embedded in other pages as needed should continue to have a consistent URL across future deployments. So that was another thing that we fixed. Then something that is more specific to UCSD's theme that I can show that David worked on is an overhaul to our search results display. This was sort of another artifact of the upgrade to Spotlight 3, and it caused some issues with our theme that tries to match campus branding guidelines. And so now I can show kind of the final version, which is we have a pretty clean list view, which you can see here. Then David also worked on the gallery view. And so everything's kind of lined up and easy to read. And then there's also a masonry view. And so all of these views now are rendering as expected. David, do you want to say anything else about the work you put in to this?
I mean, not necessarily. I mean, you pretty much covered it. It's just we had a few bugs in there and I uncovered them and basically fixed them and then just worked on the design a little to match what we do with the campus name.
And I think those are all of the things that I was hoping to show. So I will stop sharing my screen.
Thanks, Matt. So what we aren't able to show today, unfortunately, are the updates that were done to the UCSB theme in order to clear the way for us to upgrade to Spotlight 3.0. That has been primarily our largest blocker in doing that upgrade. But we have not yet actually upgraded. We will be doing that in our next local sprint, which starts tomorrow. And we don't have a review app where we can show that to you. But what I can quickly summarize is that Margaret did a really fantastic job in updating our theme so that it will not be broken when we upgrade. Also took the opportunity to do some updates to the theme itself based on some new designs provided to DLD by our communications department that we'll be eventually implementing for all of our Surfliner applications. And so that I think is a real improvement over our original theme in terms of making it more standardized for all of our different applications. Margaret, is there anything in particular that you wanted to call out about the theming work?
I don't think so. No, I think that summarizes it.
Okay. we will try to find a recording of either us demoing it in our last local sprint or in this next one, and hopefully update the Surfliner blog with that. And so just to quickly summarize, as you could tell from Matt's demo, there was quite a lot of work that was accomplished during this sprint, both demoable and not. There was a lot of behind the scenes work done too. And so we made significant progress, and we were able to accomplish the majority of what we had set out to do, with the two major exceptions being the UCSB 3.0 upgrade, and also the deployment of a Surfliner instance of Starlight. Some of that has to do with Tamsin's leave, parental leave, and when they get back in the office in the middle of our next sprint. We're hoping to get that done. And so because this is a single off-cycle sprint, we don't have a second sprint that this group is going to be continuing on starting tomorrow. And so I think that is it for the Starlight team right now. Hopefully we'll get another one of these off-cycle sprints scheduled sometime in the future to continue to do this type of work on our in-production apps. So thank you, everybody.